Aloha, my beloveds. Can you hear me? It's Adele Brienne here. So, one of my mentors, actually, two of my mentors, has encouraged, inspired, motivated, pushed, suggested that I do live videos for my audience. And despite being Miss Marketing and Miss Web Design and Miss Out There and being a performer, I have hesitated over and over and over and over and over again to do this. And I think that there's probably a lot of people out there who feel the way I do, which is I have a certain persona that I like to put out there for my social media and for my content, whether it's personal or professional. And I do like to have a bit of a polished or edited version that I put out there. So I do share a lot of video content, but even in the process of creating those videos, I have the ability to edit, refilm, change things, not post the ones that I don't like or that I think something is off or whatnot. So I think it actually really is a big challenge to go live. It's very vulnerable. You don't really know what's going to come out. It's not so scripted. Even if I have a series of notes in front of me, which I don't today. But a lot of times for my videos, I do have notes where I'm trying to hit on certain things, partially because I'm an oversharer and I tend to be very wordy and I tend to sometimes talk too much or give too much. And like on Instagram, when the reels limited you to 60 seconds, I would always film more than 60 seconds and my reels were always too long. Now they let us be a little bit longer so we can actually have longer reels on Instagram, which is great for someone like me who is like chatty and not always so concise with my message. So my one of my mentors, she actually is a publisher and she's the publisher I started working with a couple years ago, and she has helped myself and many other people transform from talking about being an author to becoming an author. So with this woman, I was able to publish three multi-author books. And what multi-author means is that I'm one of the authors and I just wrote one chapter in these books where there's multiple chapters. I've actually got each of them right here. Here's the little one that I did. The last one was Do More Stupid Things. This is kind of a skinny one. These were shorter chapters. And then I also wrote a chapter in Sacred Silver Linings. And the very first one I did was Magnetic Abundance. Um, and so when I first signed up to do Magnetic Abundance, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know any of the other writers. And I was pretty actually scared about the process and what was going to happen. And we delayed the publishing date, and that freaked me out too because I didn't know if I had like paid for something that was like not a legit product, because I had paid to participate and to get the book published and be edited and have cover design and have all the support that I had. So I did pay for that to be part of the book. And then we did go ahead and publish, and it became a bestseller on Amazon. And then there was this really beautiful feeling of, wow, I have participated in a best-selling book. And then I got to hold the book in my hand, and then I got to read the other stories of the other people who had been vulnerable and sharing their personal stories in Magnetic Abundance. And they're very inspiring stories in this book in particular. Um, so long story short, a couple years ago, when I wrote Magnetic Abundance, I was planning my wedding and I was in a relationship and I was in a really high point of my life where things were really good and exciting and stable. And by the time I joined the next book, Sacred Silver Linings, all the things I had written about in Magnetic Abundance had kind of unraveled. My fiance had left me. I no longer had my stepkids in my life. I wasn't living with them anymore. The wedding was canceled. And I was going through kind of what you call the dark night of the soul phase, where I was sad and really challenged by the things happening in my life, and I was living alone again, and I was with my dog but not my former partner, and I was just really going through a lot of process to evaluate my own value and to determine what I really wanted to do with this next chapter of my life. And I waited and waited and waited to join Sacred Silver Linings. Like, I didn't join right away. And then finally, when I kept thinking about the title of this book, which is, the subtitle is Uplifting Stories from Women Who Found the Bright Side in Dark Times. And something would just kept gnawing at me about this title. And I was like, I didn't really have the money to participate in this one. I was not in a good financial state at that time. I'd had a lot more abundance in the previous year. And at the time that I decided to join Sacred Silver Linings, I was not feeling great in my life. I wasn't exactly depressed, but I certainly wasn't happy either. I was really unhappy that the wedding had been canceled and that my partner wasn't speaking to me and wasn't willing to resolve our issues and get back on track with our relationship. That was a huge part of my life that I had poured myself into. And as a business owner, I just kept going through the motions of like running my business and trying to put on a happy front. And my personal life, people, my personal friendships, they knew I was going through hell trying to pick myself back up after the breakup. And when I finally decided to write in Sacred Silver Linings, it was this incredibly cathartic process of sharing what was going on, which was, I was feeling so shitty. I was deep in this pile of shit that was now my life, that was not the life I wanted. I really wanted to marry that man. I really loved my stepkids. I really loved the house we lived in. I loved having a dog and cats with them. And I loved that life. And I was deeply committed to being in that life. And when it was torn away from me without my choice or control, and I couldn't get it back, I was so frustrated and angry and upset. And it was this really shitty energy. And I write about this in my chapter about how eventually I finally realized that all that shit was fertilizer, and that I really needed to take this shit that life and karma had dealt me and to grow a garden with it. Because one of the things I really loved in that last chapter with that man and his kids had been gardening and planting things and growing things and putting my hands in the dirt and seeing the result of growing things in the garden that we shared. So I finally realized that all the shit that had happened was like God or spirit or whatever you want to call it giving me fertilizer in my own life so that I could plant new things and plant new seeds and start looking forward to what I could create and grow in this garden of my own life. And that I was forced to self-focus and self-love and do self-care. And ultimately in the book, I also talk about that I had really loved being a stepmom, and now there was no children left around. And I finally had the clarity and the aha moment that the child that I needed to parent was my own inner child. And that my own inner child in that past relationship had been having a lot of outbursts and had had a lot of needs and had needed attention and had needed to be tended to. And I was not tending to that inner child. I was ignoring that inner child, abusing that inner child. I was focused on everything except what I really needed on a deep spiritual, emotional level as a woman and an adult and a person and Adele. I was ignoring all these signs and all these signals and all these behaviors and all these things that really pointed to I needed to self-focus. I needed to self-love. I needed to get back to basics. I needed to love my life and remember what my life is about, which is truly me. My life is about me. And yes, there's many, many layers to the life I've created and the life I continue to create. And I was so attached to that story of being a wife and being a stepmom and that physical garden that we'd grown together that I had really neglected my own garden. I had really neglected myself. I had really neglected my own intuition. And I was actually very, very off course in that relationship. And I can tell you now that there are many, many signs from that relationship that were telling me, screaming in my face, that things were not right and that something was wrong. But I just couldn't wrap myself around that at the time. I just had blinders on and I was just very like dug in deep and just wanted to move forward. And I just didn't know how to nurture this inner child or what to do or how to soothe her or how to take care of her. So, the lesson and the blessing of writing my chapter in Sacred Silver Linings is that I had so much clarity, even though I still had a broken heart and I still yearned for my ex fiance to come back and I still yearned to have that life. It was so clear every day moving forward that that life was over, and that I really needed to move on and self focus. And it does take time. It does take time to move on. It does take time to heal a broken heart. It does take time to detach from the stories and commitments and promises I had made to myself about that life that I was choosing and that I wanted to have continue to manifest forward into the future. But the truth is that when I really doubled down and I started writing my chapter for Sacred Silver Linings, it just really gave me this deep healing and clarity that coming back to myself and thinking about who I was, who I'd been, and who I now wanted to be moving forward, that Spirit had actually given me this time and this space and this separation and all this aloneness to do this deep inner work that was absolutely necessary. And the actual silver lining that I talk about is the dog. I got a Pomeranian within that relationship. We got the dog together, and I'd never had a dog my entire life. I was 40 years old, never had a dog, didn't even like dogs for most of my life. But I had been looking at Pomeranians on Instagram and had kind of fallen in love with the Pomeranian channel and was like, I think I want a Pomeranian. Like, so weird. Long story short, I got the Pomeranian, and in the separation from that relationship, I ended up with the dog. And there was no like him taking the dog part time. He didn't care about the dog. He abandoned the dog. He abandoned me. It was just me and the dog were left. And when I got the dog, he was 4 months old and he had a coat that was white and tan and gray. And it was like he was this gray and white dog. Well, one day overnight, my dog turned from gray to brown. Like the gray was actually his puppy coat, his underlayer, because he's very fluffy Pomeranian. And so now, as a more grown dog, he's brown and white. And all the gray turned to brown. So what I'm getting at is that my dog literally has a silver lining. Like it's this gray silver coat underneath that if you look at his skin and when you pet him, you'll see there's all this silver gray layer underneath kind of hidden that is not so visible now that he's got his, he's now that he's an older doggy. And so my silver lining of this breakup was that I had this incredible, loving, loyal companion who every single day wakes up happy to see me. Every time I come home, he's happy to see me. He loves long walks on the beach. He loves spending time with me. He loves being there for me. And in a sense, everything you would look for in a loyal partner, except for some of the human stuff, obviously, but the unconditional love that we seek from our partnership, our romantic partnership, was available to me from my dog. And this whole time I had this broken heart and was crying and just, was wishing the past hadn't been that way. And then finally I had this clarity of, wow, like the silver lining of this story is literally right next to me, wagging his tail, being so cute and loving. And he's so happy to see me all the time. Like honestly, what man is ever going to be always happy to see me? What other relationship besides one with your beloved pet is going to really give you the unconditional love that is so validating and so reassuring and so sweet and wonderful and is never going to stop, So that is the sacred silver lining of the breakup, was that I ended up with this incredible dog and this new type of relationship with bonding with a pet and training him and being there for him. And yeah, so here I am, day 1, 15 days late, going live. I didn't even really know what I was going to talk about, but this is what I ended up talking about, was the sacred silver lining that came out of my breakup. And ultimately, this was also an Amazon bestseller. And the third one is also an Amazon bestseller. So I'm super grateful to my mentor. If you have been thinking about writing a book and you don't know where to start, can I highly recommend that you join my multi author book project? I have a new multi author book that I'm putting out. It's called Bedtime Stories from Entrepreneurs to Ignite and Inspire Your Dreams. I am looking specifically for business owners and entrepreneurs who want to share their stories and their nuggets of wisdom to inspire the next generation of business owners. So if you've done anything like that and that sounds interesting to you, please hit me up. If that is not interesting to you, no worries. But I'm really excited about the book. It's going to be the first one I've really produced and put together as my own project. These other ones, I joined an existing project and was just a writer contributing. This one, I'm really overseeing everything about it. I have a publisher as well, and she has also worked with my other publisher. It's kind of like this network of publishers that I now have and trust and really believe in. So if you want to get started writing or publishing, I have a lot of resources for you. I've gone through the process myself. I've been in actually now 4 collaboration books. The fourth one is a fiction book. I'll talk about that one on a different live. And it's a really beautiful way to become a published author without having to write the whole book, you know? So anyways, I just want to share that with you. I hope this has been fun for you to watch and tune into me getting over my fear of going live and just storytelling and sharing with you a little bit from my heart. The task today was to just go live and share your heart. So I hope you felt I've done that. And if you have any questions for me, please let me know. You know, I'm always here for you. I'm here to inspire and guide and lead. And I love all the people in my network, and I'm so grateful to be alive. And it's very exciting to be here. So I hope you're having a beautiful night or day, whatever time zone you're in. And I will talk to you soon. Aloha.